Hi, my name is Rebecca Fisher. I'm a family and individual support consultant here at Kinsight. This summer, I have the pleasure of working with lots of local youth in our community. And yesterday, we got to try out the youth Pictability Kit. So we had a group of about 10 youth come in yesterday afternoon, and we worked through some of the kit. And so the youth started off by picking out some of their signature strengths from the sort of collection of stickers. It was really neat to see not only them identifying the strengths within themselves, but also engaging in some conversation about, what this strength can look like and examples of how they've used this strength in their day-to-day life. It was really neat to see that sort of perspective taking and also identifying some of the strengths maybe that aren't quite so strong in themselves. And so once the youth were able to pick out their signature strengths, we then moved on to talking a little bit about some of the goals that they have. Most of our youth are kind of nearing the end of their formal high school education, so a lot of the conversation was centered around dream jobs or going to university. And so there's a few situations or goals that really kind of stuck out to me after yesterday's session. One of them being a young man who expressed to us that he wanted to one day maybe be Prime Minister.
Yes.
Do you want me to show the...
Yes, can we see the backpack?
Oh, the backpack,
Yes.
Yeah. This was the signature strengths. So he had picked forgiveness, love, humor, honesty, and appreciation. This young man then wrote out his goal, and what I liked was that he actually was very sort of intentional about first a small goal of building up to something bigger like being Prime Minister, and he talked about getting into a program at our local university about politics. So he had written in a political course. He had then broken down to his first step, and that was researching the political program at the local college, finding out what the entry requirements were and what he would need to do in order to apply. And then he highlighted that kindness was one of the signature strengths that he would really have to lean on in order to reach this goal.
He also started canvassing, right?
Yes, that's right. Finding out, which one of his peers was going to vote for him if he had made it into a party, which was neat to have other people sort of joining the conversation. And then another young person, this was their backpack, and they had picked love, forgiveness, appreciation, and humor. Now, this young man has been involved in our program for the last 4 weeks or so and hasn't actually shared a whole lot about himself. And so to see him engage in this activity, not only participating and engaging fully, but actually sharing a lot about himself. We learned so much in such a short amount of time. And his goal was to one day become a paramedic. So he'd written down his goal here, and then broken it down to some next steps. One, obviously, being graduating high school first, and then actually looking into our local Justice Institute here to find out what the entry requirements were to get into the paramedic program. And he identified quite a few signature strengths that were important to reaching this goal: honesty, curiosity, kindness, teamwork, hope, and open-mindedness. And he actually even took it a step further and sort of gave examples about how these signature strengths would be used to sort of support him with this goal. So it was really, again, neat to see someone who had been previously quite quiet and reserved really share a lot about himself and show this ability to sort of take a perspective on some future planning.
Can you see the potential for this tool to be the first step of a youth leadership development program?
Absolutely. I think there was so much interest in just sort of this tangible, they could feel it, they could see it, and they had full control over this experience. And there really was no wrong answer. There wasn't dreaming too big. The tool really helped them sort of pick what they wanted to focus on and really made it sort of accessible and easy to see what the next step was going to be, which I think and I hope provided a lot of sort of hope for them as they think about their future.
Is there potential to involve parents as well in that process?
Absolutely, actually, and I'm glad you asked that. We had a young man who did decide to take his kit home to show his mom, and that was, again, really cool to see. I could see him showing his mom with a lot of pride around what his goal was and how he had sort of figured out what the next step was. And I overheard some of their conversation around, she was so happy to see that not only did he have some sort of direction in this future goal, but that he was also able to identify the really relevant signature strengths and not just sort of throwing whatever he liked onto there, but actually really relevant skills that match that future goal.
I think the next step would be to develop some tools with good connection with family, so that family can support him also with doing those things that they can.
Yeah, my hope anyways, and thinking about that specific example, is now that this family has gone home with this youth kit, they've become a little bit familiar with Pictability, and perhaps when we offer now an extra Pictability for families in the future, they may be a little more inclined to signing up and seeing what it's all about.
Thank you.